It's Mr. Brown here. I'm going to give you a quick tutorial on Project 2. Project 2 deals with cell size, and you're going to need potato pieces in order to do this. If for whatever reason you cannot afford or get the materials, make sure in the teacher notes, as soon as you click on the project, you'll see this in teacher notes, my picture. All right, see this link in hot pink here, Cell Size Lab with data. Okay, if you click on that, it'll bring up this presentation in Google Slide format. Alrighty, and this is cell size. So make sure you are going through. Read this anyway because it has good information. So even if you can't afford your potato pieces, the data is in the very last slide. So even if you can't afford the potato pieces, do try to check out this this Google Slides presentation. All right. So cells are extremely efficient and well organized. So why do we see giant sized cells? The answer is in the surface area and the volume. Okay. So one way to think about surface area is thinking about wrapping paper. The wrapping paper of a present covers the entire surface. So what that will do is it will cover the entire surface area. Area is the amount of two-dimensional space an object takes up. Okay, so you're going to try to see how many surface area is how much that entire geometric shape, the area of all 6 sides. Okay. And volume tells you how much is inside. Okay, this is how much space an object takes up in 3 dimensions. So height, width, and then length, width, and then height. All right, 3 dimensions. Okay, for a cell, referencing the surface area to volume, surface area is the membrane, and the volume is everything that fits inside. All right, so when you're going through, also make sure you're paying attention to the rubric as well, which is right here. Explains what makes up the surface area of the cell, okay, plasma membrane, right? All right, explains what makes up the volume of the cell, that's what's inside. All right, explains the importance of surface area to volume ratio. What that means is that as the cell increases in size, in volume, the surface area can't keep up with the surface area can't keep up with how big the cell is getting. Basically, there's not enough membrane to go around. So when that happens is the membrane gets stretched thin and it can't transport nutrients efficiently. All right, so smaller cells, they have more membrane proportionally. The membrane's not as stretched out, and so small cells can transport water and nutrients into the cell and pump wastes out. All right, so that's the explanation. All right, so let's go back. Okay, so cut up 3 potato pieces. Cut the pieces so that they are different sizes. All right, so it's going to be like the Goldilocks principle, right? You have the small piece, the medium piece, and the large piece. All right, so make sure they are indeed different sizes. And you're going to put each piece into its own cup with food coloring. Now in this picture here, you see each cup has different colors. All right, you don't have to do that. Every cup can be the same color. All right, as long as the pieces are different sizes, that's all that matters. That's all I need to see. All right. All right, so after about a few minutes, let's say 10. All right, it's a little vague, but I'd say about 10 minutes. Take the potato pieces out and cut them in half. And then you're going to measure with either a ruler or measuring tape, something, how deep the dye got, how deep the food coloring got into the potato piece. Okay, all these measurements need to be done in centimeters because that's metric. All right, we use metric in science. So also when you first cut your potato pieces, make sure you measure them. The length, the height, and the width. All right, in centimeters. So make sure you measure potato pieces before putting them in the water. leave them in for about 10 minutes, and then take them out, and then see how deep the dye went into in those 10 minutes in each of the 3 pieces. Okay. Alrighty, so a lot of students get hung up on calculating surface area to volume. All right. But let's go back to, before we do that, let's go back to question 2. Explains what the potato pieces represent in the cell. I'm sorry, gave that away, didn't I? Explain what the potato pieces represent in the lab. Those represent different sized cells. And the dye, the food coloring, that represents nutrients entering the cell. All right. And then for question 3, you give the length, width, and height of potato piece 1, length, width, and height of potato piece 2, length, width, and height of potato piece 3, and the distance the dye traveled in each piece. Okay, all of that has to be in centimeters. All right, and that's lesson 6. So what trips students up the most is lesson 7. All right, and that is cell size. All right, and that is calculating surface area and volume. All right, and do show your calculations. That is important. That's 30% of the score. All right, so what most students get tripped up on, like I said, is the math. How do you calculate surface area? All right, surface area of anything. Okay, you should have these in generally like cubes or rectangles. So we're going to do a cube because it's the easiest. All right, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Hang on a second. All right, it helps if I pay attention to what I'm actually drawing out here. All right. All right, so that's a cube, roughly, right? Some of the edges aren't perfectly straight, but I drew it with a mouse, so what are you going to do? All right, so in surface area, I'm going to calculate, it's going to be SA, surface area, right? And the way to calculate that out is you take the area of one side and then multiply it by 6, right? A cube has 6 sides. Like when you play a board game and you roll dice or a die, all right? That's a cube, and that has 6 sides. All right, 6 equal sides, I should say. All right. So surface area in general, area by itself is length times width. All right, that's area. But a cube has 6 sides. So you find out the area of one side by multiplying its length times its width. And then, because a cube is 6 equal sides, multiply that by 6. Now, if you don't have if your pieces aren't uniform, you're going to have to multiply. I'm sorry, not multiply. Add each side together, okay, to get your surface area. So you would have to add all 6 sides if you didn't cut your pieces evenly. All right. So a cube has 6 equal sides. So you take your length, your width. Let's say everything on this cube is 2 centimeters. Let's pretend that's even. All right. It doesn't look even. It looks like a paper grocery bag, but let's pretend everything's even. All right. Okay. So this is the length. Sorry. This is the width. I will say this is the height. All right. So we know that surface area is length times width. Well, length and width are both centimeters. And you multiply all that by 6. All right, because there's 6 equal sides. All right, so 4 times 4, I'm sorry, 2 times 2 is 4 centimeters squared. All right, but that is only the area of one side. We have 6 sides total. So we have to multiply that by 6. 4 times 6 is 24 centimeters squared. All right, so that is the surface area of that cube. All right, okay, so that is the surface area. Now volume of a cube is length times width times height. All right, so you see my diagram here, everything is 2. So volume 2 centimeters times 2 centimeters times 2 centimeters. Well, 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. And because there are 1, 2, 3 centimeters, you have centimeters to the 3rd power, which coincidentally is centimeters cubed. All right. So that would be the volume of that cube. So volume is just length times width times height. Surface area is length times width, and you have to multiply that by 6 if all the sides are equal. All right, if not, just take the area of each side and add them all together. Okay. Now, the ratio. All right, so question 1 asks you to get surface areas for all 3 potato pieces. Okay, so you have to do the surface area calculation 3 different times because you have 3 pieces. Same thing with the volume. You have to do the volume calculation 3 different times for all 3 pieces. That's question 2. Question 1 is surface area. Question 2 is volume. Question 3 asks you about ratios. Okay, so ratios is surface area to volume, which means that the surface area number, we're going to ignore the units. Ignore centimeters squared and centimeters cubed. Just worry about the numbers. So it's surface area to volume, which means surface area must come first. Volume is the second number, and they are separated by a colon. That's what a ratio is. So surface area, we already know is 24. Volume is 8. So you put a colon there. 24 to 8. But for full credit, like a fraction, okay, much like a fraction, you can reduce this. Okay, so you can divide 24 by 8, and you come out with 3. Divide 8 by 8, and that's 1. So divide both sides. Essentially, you're dividing both sides by 8. Oops. Divide both sides by 8, and you're going to come out with a 3 to 1 ratio. Okay, so that's the surface area, volume, ratio. All right, so the larger the ratio, okay, so if it's 8 to 1, 10 to 1, the larger the ratio means the more surface area it's going to have. All right, remember how I said that big cells can't transport nutrients well because the membrane gets stretched out? All right. What's going to happen is the larger cells are going to actually have the smallest ratios. The smallest cells are going to have the largest ratios. Because the smaller cells are going to have more membrane to be able to transfer their nutrients. Okay? The larger cells aren't going to have as much membrane, so they're not going to have as much nutrients absorbed. Alrighty. Okay, so we're going to go back to this here. This is still the slides, Google Slides. They're linked in both Lesson 6 and 7. Okay. So if you cut the pieces in half, just look at, if you want to go to View, go to Present, and I'll go full screen. All right. Also, too, if you want to make it bigger, hold down Control and scroll upwards. Oh, that won't work, will it? Sorry, I thought it would. All right. So anyway, it will work on websites, not presentations. All right. So if you scroll upwards, hold Control, it will actually enlarge the image. So just look at the dark red. Okay, you can see the smallest piece went pretty much all the way through. And then not quite as far in the second piece. You can't really see because there's a glare there. But on the third piece, even less. So the biggest piece absorb as let me start over. As the potatoes got bigger, it absorbed less nutrients as it got larger, right? The dye didn't go in as far as it did for the little one, as the largest one. All right, so it decreased every time you went up in size. All right, so there's less dye absorption as the size increases, and that's the same thing for cells, right? So, like I said, if you can't afford the materials, this is the last slide. This will get you your data. Okay, potato piece 1, 2, 3. All right, the length, width, height, and the distance of the die. All right, so you notice the distance of the die is the same, but because the potato piece is larger, it's not going to go in as far as the smallest one. All right, so that's the difference. Okie doke. So, oops, that's not it. Okay. So question 1, surface area for potato piece 1, 2, and 3. Use the correct units. All right. Calculations for the volume of potato piece 1, 2, and 3. That's question 2. We already went over that. Ratios. All right. Use the data from the lab to describe the pattern observed. So we just went over that. As the cells increase in size, they don't absorb as much dye, as much food coloring as smaller ones. Okay, and as that applies to cells must remain small to be able to absorb nutrients more efficiently and in a quicker manner. All right. So that is that portion. There are actually 2 projects in lesson 2. Or I'm sorry, unit 2. All right. The next project is cell wanted posters. All right. Cell wanted posters. All right. Make sure if you go down here, you'll see 2 different types of posters. One, activity 5 says cell parts posters. Those are just blank. All right. Cell parts notes is where you want to go. All right. Cell parts notes is where you want to go. All right. So what I do is I go to pop out window, click that, and on the bottom here, this will download. All right. And that's what this is. All right. It's a PDF file. All right. So what you can do is you can type right into this file. All right. So you're going to make 4 wanted posters. You have to do all 4 organelles for full credit. And you can type right in this: mitochondria convert sugar into ATP. All right, so what's the organelle's function? Mitochondria convert sugar into ATP. What has it done that it's not functioning correctly? So what is mitochondria Mike doing that he's not working right? And how is it affecting the cell? So go through, address each bullet point. Okay, does it work with any other organelles? Any miscellaneous information when it was discovered? Who discovered it? Okay. Establish a reward amount. You have to, it's got to be money. All right, like, $50,000, $1 million, whatever you think is appropriate. All right, and a source. All right, so if you go to like www.cellsalive.com, all right, if you use that source, make sure you cite it. All right, if you don't know how to properly cite, don't just list that. All right, in order to properly cite a source, I recommend the website easybib.com. All right, so easybib, if you just type in, it's literally www.easy, B-I-B, like a bib, like a baby would wear, but it stands for bibliography. That's what it's short for. All right, so easybib.com, and you can put any format you want. We prefer MLA here at Primavera. Okay, so put the website in, search for it. It will give you everything you need to know. All right, it will make the this website will make the citation for you. Okay, so if you don't know how to make a citation, this is a great resource. Okay. Alrighty, so back to our wanted posters. So a lot of students have trouble saving it for some reason. I don't know why. Okay, so you go down to File, go down to Save As. Alrighty, save it wherever you want. Your desktop is usually the most convenient. If you're using like a flash drive or a USB drive, save it there. All right, and you can put it in as, let's say, Mr. Brown's Cell Wanted Posters. Save. Boom. Okay, and that's it. And then as you fill in the posters, save it as you go. And it'll ask you if you want to replace the file. Just click yes each time. All right. So you're going to do 4 organelles. The information it's asking for is all the same for all organelles. So these boxes, the crime, physical description, location, accomplices, everything, the questions are identical. It's just the organelles change. So you're going to do mitochondria, the first one. Gabi-Golgi complex, all right, is the second. Christopher chloroplast, and then lastly, Nicky nucleus. So do all 4 organelles for full credit. That's actually a second project. All right. If you are having trouble, please let me know. You can always call me 480-405-2642. That's my direct number. That will get you right to my desk phone. Okay. All righty. You can send me an email or a message in the student portal as well. The chat function, I don't get the notifications. I get this little teeny check that comes up in the lower left-hand corner of the screen, and it's there momentarily, and it drops back down. It's hard for me to catch those if I'm busy. All right. So portal messages, emails, and phone calls are the best way to get a hold of me. All righty. So rest of you have a great day. Good luck on these projects. I know you'll do well. And Seacrest out.